Welcome to the Nystagmus Network Virtual Open Day 2020. This presentation is with Joanne Roughton Arnold and she's chatting with Sue. Hello, Joanne, it's so lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too, Sue.
So Joanne is a member of the Nystagmus Network. She's a violinist, she's a soprano, and she's originally from New Zealand, but she now lives in the UK. So Joanne, how was it growing up with nystagmus?
Well, you know, in New Zealand, I was never, there wasn't ever an option to register as partially sighted or anything like that. It was just, oh, your eyes wobble and that means you can't see things very clearly. Everything's just out of focus. And that was pretty much all I knew. And that bright light was an issue because I have ocular albinism. So I grew up really just kind of accepting that that's just part of life, but you just get on with it and make the best of it. I think one of the lovely memories I have is when I was at school and I was about 11, I think. And I was the kid in the class who wasn't very good at sport. And I mean, I was much more interested in playing my violin or making music, or I was quite academic and sort of arty. So sport wasn't really where my talents lay. And nystagmus, of course, made it more challenging because of not having depth perception. Although at the time I didn't understand that was why I've had difficulty like doing things like catch a ball, or knowing if you're doing something like athletics and running towards a high jump, knowing exactly when to jump, because if you don't know how close you are to the high jump, it's kind of tricky to judge that. But I had an amazing teacher this particular year who recognized that I was having trouble with those skills. And she actually taught me how to catch a tennis ball, which was just amazing, having a teacher who said, cup your hands like this, don't keep them apart, and just keep your eye on the ball. And I began to catch it, which was amazing. I still wasn't going to make the school softball team or anything, but it was something. And then when we were doing athletics, and we were doing the high jump, and we had to, she wanted to demonstrate a new technique to the class. Because up until then we were all taught to do what's called the scissors, where you run up and one leg goes up and the other leg goes up and over you go. But she was going to teach us the technique where you run up, you twist, and then you jump over backwards, and it's supposed to make you go a little bit higher. So she decided to use me to teach the class how to do this. And and so I was a little bit nervous about this, but I trusted her. She said, trust me, do exactly what I tell you, exactly when I tell you to do it. So I thought, okay. So she said, run, I ran. She said, turn, I turned. She said, jump, I jumped. And I went over. And I don't know who was more surprised, me or all the other kids in the class. I mean, everyone's jaw was on the floor, because there was the kid who was no good at athletics, had actually done something the rest of the class hadn't done. And that's because of that amazing teacher. She's stuck in my memory ever since, and she's really, really special.
Sounds like an amazing woman. That's brilliant.
Really, yeah.
So when did you first really become aware of your visual impairment? Was it at school?
I think, yeah, really at school. It was, I had glasses from a very early age because I'm also long-sighted. And then astigmatism sort of showed up, reared its head as well. So I remember being age 6 and being at school with the glasses on, and some teachers being better than others. I had one teacher then who decided that the best thing to do for me was to put my desk at the front of the class, practically with my nose against the blackboard, which isn't really helpful. It doesn't make a 6-year-old feel very included. So perhaps she didn't handle that the best way she could have done. Yeah, so I think probably around about that age was when I began to become aware of it, but I didn't really understand what it was. Yeah, I wasn't given lots of information. It wasn't actually till I was in the UK and as an adult, and was doing a bit of Googling one day about nystagmus, and then I came across the Nystagmus Network, and suddenly, and there was all this information there, and suddenly so many things just slotted into place, like, oh, I don't have depth perception. That's why balls are tricky to catch. And that's why I myself every time I go down some new stairs or anyway different, and we'll all know what that feels like. So that was amazing to have that extra information. I kind of wish I'd had that earlier on, but them's the breaks. You go with what you have.
Of course. So now, of course, you're a performer and you're on stage a lot. So how do you accommodate for your nystagmus when you're performing?
I really want to make sure that the audience isn't aware of it. And so I've learnt sort of strategies for how to manage challenging situations on stage. So, for example, when I did my first season singing in the chorus at Opera Holland Park, we were doing Carmen, and so I was one of the girls from the cigarette factory who have to come on having a huge fight on stage, and which was a lot of fun to choreograph. And as part of this, I was supposed to come on with someone who's actually a dear friend of mine, but we were supposed to be fighting. So it was supposed to look like she was pulling me on by the hair. But that's not what actually happens. She just had her hand on my head, and I would have to run, keeping my head in contact with her hand. So to the audience, it looked like she was pulling me, but she wasn't. And we had to run down some stone steps to get onto the stage, right in the center. And she knows that I'm visually impaired. So she would quietly go, step, 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 at the appropriate moment. So no one else could know, but it would mean I wouldn't take a tumble.
That would have been disastrous.
It would have been disastrous. And I have to say, at that time, the opera company didn't know that I was visually impaired because I kept it quiet for a few years. But that aside, things like just for me, I've become really aware of which the directions my eyes go. So, if I'm only using one, I can only use one eye at a time consciously. I can't use both at the same time. So I'm very aware of the way it looks like I might look as though I'm not looking at who I'm looking at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I kind of think about that consciously because I can, and make sure I'm using the eye that makes my eyes look as though they're actually looking at the person I'm singing to. I think I make sure I always walk the set. So which anyone would want to do anyway. Just when they've built the set and you get into the theatre for the first time, as opposed to being in a rehearsal studio, and you've got to learn where the steps are, where the changes of level are. There was one production we did with Opera Holland Park, which was Eugen Onegin by Tchaikovsky, and there's one scene which was beautifully designed. It was supposed to be outside in the snow, and they'd put sandbags kind of mounted on top of each other and covered that with a white canvas, which was painted glossy white. Which you can imagine, that meant that every show, those sandbags could move a little bit, and the lumps and bumps could be slightly different. But I would make sure I'd walk around that set and just feel with my feet where I'm going and where it is going up and where's it going down, so you don't take an embarrassing tumble in your ball gown and look really silly. And then I suppose just other things like. I remember doing a show where I had to sing while putting flowers in a vase, and that's really easy to miss because if you haven't got it, but I found if I had one, I'll just reel back a little bit. If I'd hold the vase and make my hands touch as I put the flowers in and the stems in, and then kind of thread it down, which just made it look like a lovely, elegant thing I was doing, and not that actually I was doing it for access reasons.
So all of your experience has led you to found your own company.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I started FormidAbility last year. In February last year, we were incorporated as a non-profit company. I have been singing with the British Para Orchestra since 2018, I think it was. And they're the most phenomenal organisation, started by Charles Hazelwood. Their first gig was the 2012 London Paralympics closing ceremony. So that's not a bad start. It's just amazing. So I've only been, as I say, been with them since 2018. And one of the shows that we do is called The Nature of Why. And it's a fully immersive show, which isn't really possible during COVID, and I can't wait to do it again. But it's a show where the audience is on stage with us, not in the auditorium. And we've got musicians, singers, dancers, all mingling with the audience and moving around them and through them. And the audience are told to don't stay in one place, move around and get a different view and see what's happening behind you and over the other side of the stage, because all sorts of things are going on and you can't see everything. And in this show, it's incredibly accessible. So there's some spoken text, which is on a recording, and that's people hear that. It's also the text is on a big screen, so people can choose to read it if they want to. And there's projection of a BSL interpreter signing it. And then for visually impaired people, there is this beautiful audio description done live at every show by a performance poet. So it's not just the dull the dancer went to the left. It's how did they move to the left, and what was their face looking like, and what's the expression, what's the emotion going on. So it's just really beautiful. And at every show, we have this incredible cross section of people. You inevitably get disabled, a fair number of disabled people in the audience, and the magical moments that I've had in that show just absolutely that make you cry. At every show, the audience is crying at the end with happy tears. And the para orchestra is all about integrating disabled artists with non-disabled artists, all at a professional level. All you've got to audition, you've got to do, it's so there's no compromise on standards. And they're making concert music so accessible for disabled artists and for the audiences. And I thought, why can't we do this in opera? Because Charles Hazelwood, the conductor, started this because he suddenly thought, where are the disabled professional musicians? Why don't I see them on the concert platforms when I go around the world conducting? And the answer is because there are a lot of access issues that, for grassroots. So he set out to do something about it. And it's just amazing what he's done. So I looked at the opera profession and thought, well, 20% of the UK population has a disability, but you don't see anything like that percentage on stage in the opera houses. So I started FormidAbility to do what the para orchestra is doing in opera. So we hire a healthy mix of disabled and non-disabled professional artists to create really powerful work that's challenging and exciting and breaks down barriers on stage. And also we want to make the performances, we want to try and make every performance as accessible as we can. So rather than the usual thing with theatre where they might do a run of, 10 shows, and one of them might be audio described, and one of them might be signed. We want to make every show accessible so that you can choose to go to any of them and not be restricted. Yeah, and also make the accessibility really beautiful and exciting and artistic in its own right, so it actually reflects the energy and the emotion that's going on stage, and isn't just a practical thing tacked onto the edge. So we start thinking about the accessibility in a show from the very beginning of its creation, rather than waiting until all the artistic work's done at the end.
Sounds amazing. I bet you can't wait to get back into the theatre.
Yeah. Although we have been back this month, which is amazing. So we've had 5 days of research and development on a new opera that we commissioned, which is called The Bridge Between Breaths. And it's been, we commissioned it during lockdown, and we got funding from Arts Council England's COVID emergency fund because composers can still write in lockdown. So I approached an amazing librettist, a poet called Hafsa Anila Bashir, and a wonderful composer called Gareth Churchill. And I said to them, can we please have something that reflects what's been going on in lockdown, something that we've been going through. And what they've come up with is an opera which is based around the felling of Colston's statue. So it's incredibly resonant with what's going on in the world now. And it gives voice to Perrault, who was a slave brought to Bristol in the 18th century from Nevis. And so far we've got Act 1, and that's what we worked on in September, was exploring the music, exploring the material. And it's hugely emotional for the artists involved to be doing this kind of material, but really important to tell the story, and especially to get it into an opera stage where the history in the opera world and diversity is not so hot. So it's just great to actually shake things up a bit. And then we were also exploring an idea I had for making opera accessible for deaf people. So we have a visual artist painting live during the performance, translating the sound, the energy and the emotion and the music into color and shape on canvas. And ultimately what we want to be able to do is to have this going on through the whole opera, and see if we can project it onto the backdrop so it becomes the set, and then put creative captioning up there, so if you're deaf you can still follow the words, but have them look exciting and interesting and reflect what they mean, rather than just being a dull white on black, same font all the way, and I'm in conversation with a wonderful audio describer about how we can inject the audio description into it in a really creative way as well.
That all sounds fabulous. The sky's the limit, really, of what you can do, isn't it, once you get creative?
Once you get your teeth into it and really get going, yeah.
So how do you feel about your Nystagmus now?
Really mixed, actually. I mean, I think, of course I would love to have perfect vision and be able to drive a car and do all of that stuff. But you know what? If I didn't have nystagmus, I don't think I'd have an opera company. I wouldn't have done this. It's so it's. I think personally, I think the difficulties come with it are from other people's attitudes. It's not the nystagmus itself that's the problem. It's how other people react or what their expectations, assumptions are. And and I've had some people make some pretty crass comments to me that really made me scratch my head and think, really? Did you mean to say that? Did you mean to ask me if I ever fall off the stage? No. You thought you were being funny. Not really. But you can't control their attitudes. All you can do is actually be the best at what you do that you can. Just throw all the energy into being the best version of yourself that you can be, and find what you love to do, and go for it and do it. And who knows, some people might change their minds along the way or change their assumptions about what someone with a visual impairment can or can't do.
Yeah, if you show them. Yeah, it's true. So for any young people with nystagmus who are thinking of a career in the performing arts, what would you say to them?
If you've got a hunger for it, if you absolutely love it, and you want to live, eat and breathe it, do it. Don't take no for an answer from anybody. Just get out there and show them what you can do. And you know what? You'll be showing somebody else who you could be showing another younger child that they can dare to dream, and they can do whatever they want to do. Nystagmus is not a barrier at all. So just get out there and fly.
And I think that same message would go to any new parents watching us today who just had a baby diagnosed, maybe.
Yeah.
The sky really is the limit.
It is absolutely the limit. Don't put any don't put barriers in front of a child when there aren't any. Just don't worry about it. I remember my mum worrying about things like crossing the road, and but I learned to cross the road safely and it's totally fine. And I remember at school when we were going to use a sewing machine, and she was worried about the speed of the needle going up and down. And no, it's fine. I can use a sewing machine. I'm just careful. I can ride a bike. I can ride a bike on the roads. I get wound up by people who ride on the pavements and say, yeah, but the roads are so busy. I say, well, you know what? Get a helmet, get lights, get reflective gear. Be careful, you're fine. And so no, there are no limits. I mean, I probably wouldn't want to be an Air Force pilot, but that's fine. It's not where my skills are.
Well, Joanne, it's been an absolute delight chatting with you today. Thank you so much for sparing the time to come and talk to us. And we will all be watching your stellar career with bated breath. And wish you all the best with it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sue. It's been a joy to speak with you. Thank you.